When you think of Joan of Arc, what comes to mind? Probably a warrior, right? A visionary, a saint. But what if I told you the most intense part of her story wasn't on the battlefield at all? Nope, it was in a courtroom. That's where her faith, her wit, her sheer courage were really put to the ultimate test. So let's get into it. Let's dive into the trial that really made her a legend.
Okay, picture this. It's 1431. We're in Rouen, France, but it's under English control. And a 19-year-old girl is led into a room full of powerful men, theologians, lawyers, the whole shebang, and she is completely alone. Now you have to understand, this wasn't some fair trial to get to the truth. No way. This was a setup, orchestrated by her English enemies, designed for one thing, to destroy her. The stakes? Well, they were literally life and death.
So you might think she'd be terrified, right? But this is the Joan they were up against. Not some scared kid from the countryside. She looked these powerful men right in the eye and basically warned them. This quote? It comes from the actual trial transcripts. It just perfectly shows that unshakable belief she had, the very thing that would define her and, well, seal her fate.
Okay, so the big question is, how on earth does a teenager from some tiny village end up in this position, going head-to-head with the most powerful people in the country? To really get what's happening at the trial, we've got to back up a little and look at her just incredible journey.
I mean, it was an absolute whirlwind. It all starts when she's just 13, hearing what she believes are divine voices. Fast forward a few years, she's 17, and somehow convincing the future king of France to believe in her. By 19, she's leading an army, pulls off this amazing victory at Orléans that completely changes the course of the war and gets Charles VII crowned. But then, just a year later, bam, she's captured and sold to the English. Her rise was just meteoric, and her fall was just as fast.
All right, so back to that courtroom. The judges start their questioning, and it's not a friendly chat. They're laying a series of clever theological traps, all designed to make her say something heretical. But they were in for a surprise. They found themselves up against an intellect and a faith that was honestly more than a match for them.
So here's trap number one. They ask her about the voices. Are they from God, an angel, a saint? See what they're doing? They want her to get specific so they can find a contradiction, or maybe twist what she says into blasphemy. It's a total classic lawyer's move, right? Just trying to box her in. But Joan? She doesn't fall for it. Not for a second. Her answer is so direct. She doesn't guess. She doesn't speculate. She just says the voice comes from God and then links her belief to the very Christian faith they all share. It's so simple, but so powerful. What could they say to that?
All right, next up, they go after what she's wearing. Now, you got to remember, for the church back then, a woman in men's clothes was a huge deal, a serious crime. It was seen as totally unnatural, like she was rejecting God's plan. For the prosecution, this was one of their main arguments to prove she was a heretic. And her response, once again, totally unwavering. She basically says, this wasn't my idea. It wasn't a fashion statement. It wasn't some act of rebellion. It was a direct command from God. And by saying that, she's not just defending herself. She's flipping the script on them. She's daring them. If you call me a heretic for this, you're saying God's command is heretical. Pretty bold.
Okay, now for their big gotcha moment. This was the master move. They ask her, do you know if you are in God's grace? And this is the ultimate trap. Think about it. If she says yes, she's guilty of the sin of presumption. I mean, who can possibly know that for sure? But if she says no, she's admitting she's a sinner, which would completely wreck her claim of a divine mission. It was a lose-lose, a perfect checkmate, or so they thought.
But her answer, wow. It's gone down in history as one of the most brilliant replies ever. She just completely sidesteps the whole trap with this perfect mix of humility and faith. She avoids the sin of presumption, but she still shows her total devotion. She puts the final call exactly where it belongs, in God's hands. It was the only theologically correct answer she could give. And get this, the court records literally say the judges were so stunned that they just packed it in for the day. She outsmarted every single one of them.
So even with this incredible defense, let's be real, the outcome of this trial was already decided before it even started. But her story is far from over. In fact, her conviction is what sets up one of the greatest turnarounds in history.
She was found guilty, and at just 19 years old, she was burned alive at the stake. The authorities were so afraid she'd become a martyr, a symbol, that they went to incredible lengths.
There's this story that her heart was found completely intact in the ashes, and they threw it into the river. That tells you everything you need to know about how terrified they were of what she represented.
And here's the twist. Fast forward 25 years. The very same king she fought to put on the throne, Charles VII, suddenly has a problem. His legitimacy is tied to a convicted heretic, and that's just bad for business, politically speaking. So what does he do? He calls for a new trial. And surprise, surprise, this new trial declares the original one was a complete fraud and that Joan was innocent all along. So think about that. Politics is what condemned her, and in the end, politics is what cleared her name.
So, with her name officially cleared, her story was finally free to become the legend we know. And over the centuries, wow, she's become this incredibly powerful symbol for so many different people and so many different causes.
I mean, just look at the range here. Her story, this ultimate outsider standing up to authority because of what she believed in, it just resonates with people everywhere. She's been a symbol for French nationalists, revolutionaries in the Philippines, American suffragists, you name it. It's like everyone can see a piece of their own fight, their own conviction in her story.
And here's maybe the biggest irony of all. During World War I, the very country that burned her at the stake, England, actually used her image on propaganda posters to rally their own troops against Germany. I mean, how crazy is that? That just shows you how powerful and universal her symbol had become.
And really, that says it all, doesn't it? The fire that was supposed to erase her from history, it did the exact opposite. It ignited her legend. That young woman who stood up to her judges with such incredible, unshakable faith, she became more than a person. She became an idea, a symbol of courage that, even 600 years later, still captures and inspires our imagination.